Half Forgotten History is presented by State Farm. Getting great car or home insurance from State Farm at a surprisingly great rate? Well, that's just like talking to the biggest names in NFL history and hearing their untold stories. It's the real deal. So choose insurance that always brings its A game. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Every teammate that I was with and all the coaches that were on that team, we never ever gave up, and we kept our focus, and we said, we're going to do this, we're going to do it again. And unfortunately, as we all know, it never worked out, but I'll tell you what, I'm proud to say I'm a Buffalo Bill, and I always will be.
Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here, and you know I've been doing this for 30 plus years, talking about sports with some of the greatest athletes to ever do it that lived in the biggest games of all time. I know today's guest on Half Forgotten History is going to bring the good stuff, so I brought the good stuff from Maker's Mark so I can have a sip and enjoy the stories as well as the bourbon. Delighted to be joined on this episode of Half Forgotten History with a man who's very familiar to a lot of people, but maybe not for the reasons that you should know him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in none other than Hall of Fame quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, Jim Kelly. Jim, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Trey. How you doing? I like your background.
Well, you know, they always say be who you are, Jim, and I think I'm trying to live in my moment right now more than anything else. So cheers to you, and let's have some fun telling some stories here, my friend.
I like it.
Okay, so the whole premise of this show, again, is things that people have forgotten over history. And I think a lot of people go, oh, Jim Kelly, yeah, Hall of Fame quarterback, Buffalo Bills, blah, blah, blah. I bet a lot of people have forgotten or didn't even know that you were the first of the long line of great quarterbacks that came to the University of Miami. And you wore a very unusual number there, right? I mean, people, I think, they talk about Testaverde and Kozar and all these other people, but you were the first of those guys to make the University of Miami quarterback you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about it was they were not even on my radar. I, from start to finish, thought I was going to Penn State. I mean, I went to Joe Paterno's football camp my junior, senior year, and I thought, this is where I'm going. I mean, they came to my basketball games. They heavily recruited me, and unfortunately, I still had a couple visits left to go, and Coach Paterno called and he said, just want to let you know that we've already signed 2 quarterbacks we want, but we'll give you a full ride, but as a linebacker. And I'm like, good God, you're kidding me. And of course, I was bummed out. I called my brother Pat, my oldest brother, who was drafted by the Baltimore Colts as a linebacker at the University of Richmond, and we always looked up to him, and we still do. I mean, he's the oldest. And I said, Pat, Coach Paterno called and he said, do you want me as a quarterback? Because they already signed a couple of guys, but he'll give me a full ride as a linebacker. What should I do? And he said, brother, I have a few words of advice for you. He said, before you board those chartered flights, he said that stewardesses never want to know who the linebackers are. They always want to know which one's a quarterback. I go, bro, that's all I need to hear. Thanks for your advice. Click. I went to the University of Miami and became a quarterback.
Yeah, but you know what? I think what we really need to understand is you would have been one hell of a linebacker.
That's right. Maybe not me. I may have had too many concussions, and thank God that they don't do back then what they do now with the protocols.
Right.
Or I definitely wouldn't have made 11 years in the NFL and 2 in the USFL.
So you go to Miami, you become the first really star quarterback there, but you guys didn't throw the ball a lot. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, people see the game now. You guys were not a pass-happy offense when you were at Miami.
No, we weren't. I remember going there and thinking, Luke Saban recruited me, not thinking, okay, we're going to throw the football. Well, unfortunately, they started running the veer offense. And for people out there that are New York fans especially, a guy by the name of Otis Anderson, who became the Super Bowl 25 MVP, he was my running back.
Yep.
And he used to yell at me for not getting the ball out to him quick enough. I go, I didn't come here to be an option quarterback. I came here to throw the ball. So long story short, I was looking to transfer to the University of Tennessee. And again, my oldest brother, Pat, said, Jim, he said, I heard that Lou Saban was thinking about leaving. Let's wait and find out who comes in. And sure enough, Howard Schnellenberger came in, and with him was Earl Morrow. And now I'm going to fast forward. Now I'm going to back up. And we're 3 wins, 5 losses, somewhere around there. We're traveling to Penn State to take on the Penn State, the team that recruited me to play linebacker. So I'm to back up, and we're at a pregame meal, and I did a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and Trey, I'm sure you've met Howard Schnellenberger before, but he's like a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Son, come with me. I need to speak with you. And I'm like, oh boy, what did I do wrong? So I'm walking with him trying to think of what the heck I did wrong. He said, I decided that you deserve an opportunity. You're starting today. Get ready. And I go, what?
Wow.
He goes, you deserve it. Get ready. First thing I did was I excused myself into the bathroom and I started throwing up. And he heard me. And I come on, he said, son, you all right? I go, I'm fine, coach. I said, I did that during high school too. He said, okay then. He said, let's get ready. And then we went on to that day, we upset Penn State. We beat them 26-10. My first 4 starts as a freshman quarterback at the University of Miami was against Penn State, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Florida. And I went to a little small town with 800 in my hometown. I think it was 65 in my graduating class, 28 on my football team, no traffic lights. And that was the first 4 starts I had as a college quarterback. So welcome to big-time NCAA football.
We call that an early baptism. And I want to go back to the puking story because why not? All puking stories are in their own right very, very interesting. But that became a tradition for you, right? It started in high school, continued to college, and when you finally got to the NFL and the Bills, the offensive lineman for Buffalo would not let you out of the locker room until they'd seen you puke.
Well, it wasn't so much seeing me puke, they heard me. I was very loud. And the thing is, it wasn't because, I was scared. It was just my nerves. I was always so amped up. And I was like a linebacker. I was always so excited. I couldn't wait to hit the field, go out there. I was always pumped up. And that just made me feel better. And there were games, I'm not going to lie to you, there were games where I didn't feel like doing it. But my offensive line said, I don't care if you don't have to do it. Like, go back there. We at least want to hear you. So I would go back and put my finger down the throat and all that just to get them happy. And then we'd take the field and I'd walk down my lineman and play ball.
And that is an important clarification because it's better for them to hear you than see you. So I'm glad you brought that up. That makes for a better experience all the way around. Okay, so now then you get drafted, part of the infamous class of '83, 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. You were taken 14th overall by the Bills, but you said, you know what? I'm good. And you turned down Buffalo and go spend the first 2 years of your career in the USFL playing with the Houston Gamblers. And that's the point under Mouse Davis, who was running a run-and-shoot offense, who was, what was he? He was the head coach or the offensive coordinator?
He was offensive coordinator.
Offensive coordinator. And that's the guy that really taught you how to throw the football, right?
Yeah, you know what he really did more than anything is not only taught me the game of football in more detail, but learn how to throw on the run. I had to work on my legs more than anything, my footwork, rolling to the left, rolling to the right, and doing things like that. So he helped more of my athleticism, even though I wasn't a great athlete. I mean, I played basketball and did all that and had fun and broke records. But the thing is, I needed to get better with my legs. I needed to be quicker on my feet. And Moss Davis definitely did that for me. We threw the ball, 40, 50 times a game, and I had a blast.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And you were part of arguably the greatest game that no one ever knows about in the history of football. And that was a shootout at the LA Coliseum between your Houston Gamblers of the USFL and the LA Express of the USFL. Side note, their quarterback was also a Hall of Famer, Steve Young, who was my high school quarterback, by the way. And
wow.
Let me clarify. We went to the same building, but we went to different schools, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha.
He was Mr. Everything, and I was just the schlep trying to make it through high school. So we had different high school experiences. But that was supposed to be a nationally televised game on ABC, but instead they pulled the plug because Doug Flutie was the hot hand at that point, and they televised that game. So the only video of that game that exists is coach's tape. And you guys, I think, got up 13-0. And then the LA Express stormed back to go up 34-13 with about 10 minutes to play. And you threw for 574 yards in that game. And you guys came back and won 34-33. What was that experience like? Because I think there were only like 15,000 people in the Coliseum, which seats over 90 grand.
I think it was like, I don't even think there was 10. What they said was the greatest game that no one saw.
That is correct.
Yeah, it's like playing. People ask me about this COVID and the pandemic. I go, I remember we played the LA Express in the USFL in front of like 9,000 people and over 100,000 seat stadium. So it was like playing in that, but it was a blast. And then of course, if you fast forward from the Steve Young, the no punt game was against Steve Young also. Now it's a back and forth battle also, but The USFL days, Trey, I loved them. I had a bunch of little receivers, Richard Johnson, Ricky Sanders, the Ice Cube, Gerald McNeil.
From
And
Baylor University.
I had a blast. I mean, like I said back then, I was drafted by Buffalo. I went to the University of Miami to Florida to get out of the cold weather. I was drafted by Buffalo. I didn't want to go there, so I went to the Dome. No wind, no rain. And I thought, you know what? They're paying me more money than Buffalo did. So, I mean, this seems to be a league that's on the up and ready to come. I mean, they had like, what, 3 Hall of Famers in a row, Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie and Reggie White, one of the greatest defensive ends ever played a game, and many more. I had confidence in the league, but unfortunately we tried to go battle against the NFL and we folded. But to be honest with you, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was becoming a Buffalo Bill. I love Buffalo. I love the family atmosphere. I love the fans. And, of course, I met my beautiful wife there.
All right, so now, before we get into the NFL years, let's take a little break here. Time to refill our glasses here because there are a couple of things that we need to know and everybody needs to know about the Jim Kelly Buffalo Bills experience. We'll get to that right after this. You know, here in the East Coast and quite frankly across the country, McDonald's just isn't this large global restaurant. It's a local one too. Much in the same way these Hall of Fame athletes that you see me talking to are also people that live and work in the communities and towns where they are. McDonald's are owned and operated by people that live in those communities. And when you eat at a McDonald's, you're supporting a local business. You might even be supporting your neighbor's business. And McDonald's franchises also care about the communities that they're in. That's why they give back to the local Ronald McDonald chapter houses and why they help first responders, like when they gave hot, fresh meals to those out there fighting the devastation of Hurricane Laura. When you own a McDonald's, you are committed to serving the community where you do business. McDonald's, serving here. Here at Half Forgotten History, our surprisingly great conversations are brought to you by State Farm. State Farm agents provide personalized service so you can customize your insurance to fit your needs, like our Hall of Fame guest choosing the perfect, never-before-told story to share with our listeners. Look, you need a team that supports you and gets you, and State Farm's got a great one. In addition to agents, the award-winning mobile app helps manage coverage, pay bills, file claims, and more. With a great price and even greater service, State Farm goes from strength to strength. Choose insurance that always brings its A game. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. All right, continuing our conversation with Hall of Famer Jim Kelly. I hope your glass is refreshed and filled to the brim, and let's have a toast to what I consider to be, Jim, the greatest accomplishment in the history of the NFL that nobody talks about. But before I do that, I have to tell you, the first time I ever met you in person was at Super Bowl 40 in Detroit between the Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks. And I was walking, shockingly, I was in a bar, and you and Trent Dilfer walk in, and I remember this because we've been doing NFL Live for 4 years at that point, and we all thought the show was going pretty well, but you and Dilfer came in, and the two of you said, man, we love watching NFL Live. We love listening to you guys chop it up every day. That was the moment for me where I was like, damn, people actually are watching this stuff, and it may be working. So thank you for that, Jim. You gave me the seal of approval that the shit was working.
I liked it.
So that was sort of the line where good, things are going. But, you know, we're in this era now where it's so hard for a team to get to the playoffs 2 years in a row. It's so hard for a team to even think about the idea of getting to back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls with a chance to win one, maybe two. Because everything is about winning these days, and everything is about the bottom line, who won. Oh, nobody remembers who lost the Super Bowl. Well, I do, but I may be a statistical geek and an outlier along those lines. The Buffalo Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and they lost every single one. And I don't know if there is a harder thing to do in the NFL than to go, lose, come back, lose worse, go back, lose even worse, and still have the mental fortitude to get there 4 straight years. Tell me about what it was about that team with Marv Levy and all those Hall of Famers that were with you that gave you guys the mental strength to keep just fighting uphill.
Well, without a doubt, number one was our head coach, Marv Levy. Always had the right things to say at the right time. I know we didn't win any of them, but you know, the bottom line is the attitude that we had, the leadership that we had on our team, not just, you know, with me being the quarterback and being the leader of the offense, but having guys like Darryl Talley, Bruce Smith, Thurman, Andre, and the guys that we have, Ken Hall, probably one of our biggest leaders, God rest his soul. What the bottom line was, after we lost that first one, we knew we were a good football team, but we also knew that, we have to work a little harder in the offseason. So we did, and we wound up coming back. And then I think after we lost that second one, I think the chip that we had on our shoulder was nobody wanted us back, and we just wanted to tick everybody off and tell it the way it is. We wanted to piss everybody off and go back again, and we did that 4 in a row. And I think the biggest thing that I wasn't sure of was after losing a couple of them, I knew physically that all my teammates would be working their tail off because you know what, those paychecks were very good back in the day. But you never
They're even better now.
Oh my goodness, I don't even want to go there. Oh boy, you got that right. That's why I'm still working. But the thing is, Trey, as you probably know too, is the mental approach. When you hear all the time, the Buffalo Bills and, the offseason, all the negativity that you hear, I think it does even more pumped up to go back again. And I wasn't sure how some of my teammates would handle it. I had an idea, but you never know. And as I said before, physically, I knew they were going to be ready, but mentally, we weren't sure. It didn't take me very long to recognize that in training camp that these guys wanted to get back again. And we did it. But again, it was the leadership of Marv Levy and all of us pulled together. And I'll tell you what, we're so close today. I don't think we would be as close today if we would have won a couple of those. The camaraderie we had in that locker room, and more importantly, probably away from the locker room, was so important why we were so successful.
Yeah, one of the things that always stuck with me was after Super Bowl 28, it was at the Atlanta Georgia Dome. Mm-hmm. And we were downstairs in the bowels of the stadium and people were doing their post-game interviews. And I'll never forget this as long as I live, Jim. Darryl Talley was at the podium and the reporter asked a very specific question. What is it like to come to 4 straight Super Bowls and lose all 4 in a row? And Talley paused for a minute and he looked into the camera and said, well, it's a bitch if you really must know. I mean, how much did it sting your guys' pride that you went 4 straight times and you just couldn't find a way to get over the hump?
Oh, it still hurts. You know what? When I watch, when it's come close to Super Bowl days, you know how they replay all the Super Bowls back and they have, 10, 15, 20 minutes of each Super Bowl. When it comes to Super Bowl 25 and on, I don't even watch them. I have yet to watch that game, any of those Super Bowls ever. I thought maybe one day I would watch with my son, but as you may or may not know, Hunter, my son, is in heaven now. And I never got that chance, and I never have went back and watched it again. And I'm very good at when negative things enter my mind, I automatically very good at pushing them aside and changing my thought process into something positive. And not only during, throwing interceptions, that's, I think, one of the things that I was able to get over, throwing a pick and coming back and rallying the team behind it. But with my life in general, you think about it, you learn from it, you move on. And I've been very good at being able to move forward and not, sit there and dread, having to think about those losses, thinking about the loss of my son, thinking about my battle 3 times with cancer. I move on, try to make whoever's around me a better person by learning from what I went through. So all part of life.
You've been through a lot, and I'm just trying to figure out if there was one moment, because people always look at wide right, and I get that. It was a 47-yard kick. There's a lot of pressure on that. I get that. In that first Super Bowl, I remember when Bruce Smith had Jeff Hostetler dead to rights and how he didn't fumble that ball. Or the Super Bowl 28, start the second half, and you guys were up 13-6, and then Thurman puts it on the ground, and they run it back for a touchdown for the Dallas Cowboys. James Washington does. Was there one moment, or in Super Bowl 27 when you got hurt and had to leave the field in that game? Was there one moment in all of those Super Bowls that stung more than any of the others?
Boy, I knew how good we were during Super Bowl 26 when we faced the Washington Redskins, but unfortunately, we were hitting them at their peak. I mean, they were rocking and rolling, and We just went into that game thinking we were going to have to play a perfect game, and unfortunately we didn't. I mean, we had a very good year that year all before. What probably made me more mad than anything, a lot of those teams we played during the regular season, we beat them, and then all of a sudden we played them during the real Super Bowl. And unfortunately, the NFC East always had a dagger in our back, and they made it go through it. But no, you know what? When I was a little kid, when I grew up in Pennsylvania watching the Steelers and watching them win the Super Bowl, I was one of those little kids that would lead my team down the field when I was 10, 11 years old and 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl and all that. Well, that happened to me in Super Bowl 25. There was 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, and I'm leading my team down the field to win the Super Bowl. And as we all well know, let them down there, kick went wide right, and we lost. But you know what? I am so proud to say I played for the Buffalo Bills. And I'm so proud to know that every teammate that I was with and all the coaches that were on that team, we never, ever gave up. And we kept our focus. And we said, we're going to do this. We're going to do it again. And unfortunately, as we all know, it never worked out. But I'll tell you what, I'm proud to say I'm a Buffalo Bill, and I always will be.
So what does it mean now for you guys that have been through the heartache and been through the highs and those devastating lows, and seeing the Bills just sort of be stuck in a rut for about 20 years, to see a team that has a young, energetic running quarterback who can use his legs like Jim Kelly learned to use his legs? It feels like they're on the precipice. What would it mean for the Bills of the Super Bowls 25, 26, 27, and 28 to see this generation of Buffalo Bill at one point maybe hoist that Lombardi trophy?
I would love to see it. I mean, this year, you look at it's in Tampa again, and we can relive those days.
Super Bowl 25.
If you rewind the tape, but we got to get better. I mean, I think we have a very good football team, but I think we got to step it up. One of the things that I want to see a game, a playoff game, played right here in Buffalo, New York, in our backyard. I don't even know the last time we played one at the Ref, or which is what I call it now, here in Buffalo. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and again, it might be a weird scenario because we don't know how many people could be in the stands for that situation, and that sort of changed everything as we go through this NFL season. And I know you guys have got some things coming up for your foundation in December that you're trying to do whatever you can in this pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic's, we're not the only one. I mean, I'm used to in my foundation, Kelly for Kids and Hunter's Hope, being able to hand out, hundreds of thousands of dollars to the less fortunate right here in Buffalo. And unfortunately, as y'all well know, we could not have our golf classic that we have each and every year. And we give out all this money, and we get to hear what the money goes to, the Girls and Boys Club of Western New York. I can go on and on, all the places we help. And unfortunately, that did not happen. So we've got to try to figure out something we got to do. Bottom line, you're going to be raising money for a great cause, and that's Kelly for Kids Foundation and Hunter's Hope, named after my son.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, for that reason and your incredible career and the great stories we shared today, a toast to you, my friend. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. And as always, great to talk to you, man.
Trey, it's always been my pleasure. I used to like your show. I always did. You know what you're talking about. You love guys that talk about football, that know what they're talking about. Great job. Keep up on the band. We'll definitely have a cocktail down the road together.
You got it, partner, as soon as we can.
God bless you.
That'll do it for this episode of Half Forgotten History. Our thanks to Hall of Famer Jim Kelly for letting us inside and telling us some of the great stories and reliving some of those painful memories. And on his behalf, we're sending a check in Jim's name to Ronald McDonald House. And thanks to Maker's Mark. Remember to pour yourself into everything you do and reach for a bourbon that's made with a personal touch. In fact, why don't you pour yourself a glass of Maker's Mark right now and raise a glass to the incredible athletes and these stories they're sharing with us and giving us the insights as they live them in real time. And remember, Maker's Mark crafts their bourbon carefully. All they ask is that you enjoy it the same way. Coming up on the next edition, we'll talk to a cornerback who was a Super Bowl champ and wasn't afraid to snatch a chain or two if he needed it. Of course, I'm talking about cornerback Aqib Talib.